Hi everybody. I hope you can hear me. If you can, if you cannot hear me, then I think you can just indicate in the chat box or let me know if you can't. Okay, so I'm gonna begin the talk today. First and foremost, I think thank you for joining us. I'll introduce myself. My name is Miss Raudah. I am also the academic manager for EduFront. Okay, I think for those who do not know, I also teach some of the classes. I think I saw some familiar names. I guess some of you, your kids or your child is in my current class, my current online class. So today we'll be talking about study techniques and motivation strategies to help your child excel in PSLE. So most of you, if not all, your children should be taking PSLE in the year 2024. Before we begin, I'm just going to say that this is actually a rerun. We have done a similar content, or rather, same content last year with the same topic. So, if you have attended last year, then you realize that the content are the same. For those of you, I think the whole talk or the whole duration of this workshop is about 45 minutes to an hour. If there's a need for you to leave early, then by all means go ahead. Not to worry, because the recording will be sent via the same email that you registered with. So should you not able to stay throughout the talk, then it's okay. And then you can just watch the recording that will be uploaded and sent to you. Right. Okay, so let's start. By the way, a brief introduction about myself. I was formerly teaching in MOE, and then I left to go full time into tutoring. Then I joined EduFront for about 4 to 5 years. Previously a freelance tutor, and then I moved on to be a full time staff. So I've been with EduFront since. So for today, we'll be going through these study techniques and motivational strategies. So the section is actually divided into two categories. So the first part is about study techniques. Second part will be on motivation strategies. So what we receive, or rather when you sign up, I think some of you indicated some of the questions that that you wish to ask. So generally, I've lumped or grouped them according to these few questions. So the common questions that we received was, one is best learning techniques. Now, I would need to stress on the point that when it comes to best learning technique, there's actually really no best technique. Okay. As a matter of fact, there's no one size fits all. It really depends on your child ability and your child interest. Okay, so this is a bit of a trial and error to know exactly, because you as parents should know your child best, so you would know what works and what not. Okay, so what instead we're going to cover today is a few techniques that ranges from the different abilities. So based on those techniques that are suggested, you can probably find one that works well with your child, because something that works for child A may not work for child B. All right. Another question that we get was how to motivate your child to do better in studies, how to motivate them to self-study or complete their revision, the best way to attract my child to study, and ways to study. So again, a disclaimer, I would need to add that there isn't a best way. It's just a trial and error method to find something that is most suitable for your child. Right. Okay. So like I mentioned, there's the talk is actually divided into two parts. Okay. One being the motivational strategies portion, and second is the study techniques portion. Okay, so I've separated the two. Okay, so for motivational strategies, the strategies that I'll be discussing in this talk was actually adopted by this study or this write-up, okay, that is created in 2013. So I adapted the strategies and put it in PowerPoint format instead of a whole report. Okay, so the first one, there's actually I think about 4 or 5 points. Okay, it may seem quite the points may seem quite straightforward or something that you already know, but sometimes it's you don't know that you've been doing it, or you don't know that it's actually important for you to actually do all these strategies or to apply all these strategies. So one thing that you do that we always do in school, not just in tuition center, what we always do in school at the beginning of the academic year is actually to set goals. Goal setting is something that you think is very trivial, okay, but it's actually quite important because at the end of the day, it's good that the child knows what they want to obtain by the end of the year. Okay, like for most of us or most of you now, right now, the goal is for your kids to do well for PSLE. So, but what exactly about the goal? What defines doing well? So that is something that you will need to really focus on. Okay, so basically the importance of setting goals is actually self-motivating. And then it's self-motivating, it allows the child to feel competency as they accomplish all their little goals or their smaller goals throughout the year. Something that when you want to set goals, we need to ensure that we de-emphasize on performance goals, but instead on mastery. Okay, so what exactly are mastery goals? Later I'll go on to the next slide. But basically, mastery goals are more effective because the satisfaction that they get is not related to external indicators. So let's say in the event that they are not able to achieve those goals, then they are less likely to give up in difficult circumstances. Okay, and that's when they will persevere throughout the setbacks. So examples. Okay, so first thing, there's two things that we need to remember. One is performance goals and another one is mastery goals. So performance goals is more like the first two, which is you need to score full marks for multiplication tests. This is something that is quite common. I think being parents, all you need to do is like, oh, you must get full marks, or you must get 8 out of 10, or you must score AL1, for example. So these are something that we always like to emphasize for our children. Like, okay, this is what you need to do. But instead of doing that, focus more on the mastery goals, which is I want to be able to recite my multiplication table. So instead of scoring full marks, right, to tell them that, oh, you need to score 100%. Instead of doing that, what you can do is, oh, as long as you're able to recite your multiplication table, then it's actually very good. But at the end of the day, you realize that it's the same thing, but the way you phrase it matters. Okay, because if you want to say that, oh, I need to score full marks, you have to score full marks, that's your goal. So in the event the child do not score full marks, then they will feel demotivated. Like, oh, mommy say I need to score full marks, now I only got 9 out of 10. So they will feel the disappointment. But if you put it in terms of mastery, basically in the sense that, okay, you need to recite the multiplication table. As long as you can recite, it's good enough. Okay, then that's when it will change the whole perception for the child. Okay, so like sometimes when it comes to word problems also, the second example. So when it comes to word problems, I say, oh, you must get all correct. Okay, but what does it mean to get all correct? So instead of focusing on the actual number or the scores, what you can do is, okay, you can solve word problems using constant difference. So every time the child, oh, okay, I can solve using constant difference, that's one heuristic skill covered. So it's a mastery. So once the child is able to do constant difference, then you move on to the next heuristic skill, number times value, for example. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. Now, next is growth mindset. Okay, so basically growth mindset is the belief that one's ability can change and improve over time, and that the abilities and talents can be cultivated and improved through hard work. Okay, and then basically for people or students with growth mindset, they actually enjoy a challenge and see struggles as necessary as part of growth. Okay, so learners that has growth mindset are actually more motivated to work hard. So what does it mean by having growth mindset? Okay, so growth mindset is not to put a limit to what they can do. All right, so for example, instead of saying like, oh, you are such an incredible reader. Now, when you tell them that something that they are very good at, it will stop them from believing that they can do better. Okay, so like instead of telling them that, oh, you're such an incredible reader, then you can say that, oh, I can tell that you have been practicing. So that's when they can change the mindset that, oh, instead of telling me that I'm already the best at reading, so what's the point of reading more? I'm already the best. If you tell me that, oh, you're such a wonderful reader, so that's it. That's the limit that they think they can. So instead of doing that to push them harder, okay, the words that you can use, the words that you use actually matters. All right. Now, next, involving your child in the learning process. Okay, so students who are involved in creating the assignment or the project that they are doing, okay, gains valuable experience in setting their own goals and standards. All right, so this gives your child a sense of ownership and control over their own learning and allow them to have the opportunity to identify and explore related subtopics. Okay, I know it's very difficult, but sometimes what we set as parents is really not what the child wants. So in this case that like for example, especially when it comes to revision, okay, so like for example, the child just keep wanting to do a particular topic. Like you think that okay, your child need to do maths. Okay, insist on doing maths. Every day also do maths. Okay, but what happens is it's not what your child wants to do. Instead, your child prefer doing science. Okay, sometimes there's always a need to balance the two. So just because just because you think that okay, I need this, my child is very weak in maths, so you keep practicing maths. But actually, the more you insist on them doing something, the more they will not want to do it. Okay, so if you're able to give your child a sense of ownership and control over that, what they want to do, like today, what do you want to do? Do you want to do math? Do you want to do science? Do you want to do English? Give them a choice, okay? Then it will help better. Okay, so at the same time, okay, on top of that, like why is it that it's important that we actually give them the sense of ownership and control? Then at least when you give them something that they are keen in or something that they're interested in, it will actually invoke their own curiosity. So this is when they are more than willing to learn more. Because they themselves are curious, then that's when they will be self-motivated, okay, intrinsically motivated. Okay, linking from the previous point, okay, there's allow for independence is what I mentioned earlier. So offer them choices about what to work on or how to complete an assignment. Okay, then from there you are able to enhance task interest and engagement. Then allow the child to set their own goals and monitor their own progress. So this is to encourage their own independence and to self-evaluate their work. Okay, so like I think there was this question. Okay, so the first point, offer them choices about what to work on or how to complete the assignment. Okay, one thing's for sure, I think for schools, we are already very structured. Okay, so what does it mean? Like, you know, it's always like homework, schoolwork, study, homework, group work. So, and then the time taken or the time spent in that particular period or that particular hour is always the same thing. It's very routine and structured. So, and then when they come home, and then like parents, what we tend to do is to give them assessment books. Okay, so like oh, today is math revision, now do assessment book. So eventually that action of keep repeating doing assessment book become a structure as well. Okay, but I know it's not easy because I think when you want them to revise or practice, the most common medium to do or to work on is assessment book, right? So sometimes you do not have a choice. But what you can allow them is flexibility on what subjects they want to cover. So that means if let's say they have to do revision, you tell them that okay, this particular time you have to do revision after school from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., for example. So what you can do is to give them the flexibility on what they want to do. Okay, the subjects they want. So it's not going to be so structured. Okay, and then for enhancement of tasks, so students who are, if instead of just doing assessment book, if you are able to find something else to engage that ties in with their revision, is also better because it's able to, they can relate their interests and then, which then cause them to be more interested in learning. So they will find it easier to cover or grab certain concepts and make their own revision more enjoyable. So what kind of activities that you can engage in, I'll go through in the second part of the day. Okay. Now, so how else can you actually enhance the interest in something? Okay, so it can be fostered through mini projects, other certain books other than assessment books. Okay, so these are the things that, like I mentioned, I'll cover in the second part of the slides. Okay, where the different types of activities that you can help other than just using assessment book. Okay. Now, so lastly, or last 2 points, okay, to actually enhance or to motivate your child to learn is to by connecting the learning to the actual world. Okay, so it's basically learners who can see the connection between a project-based task or something that they do as well that is linked back to the real world, they will be more motivated to understand and solve the problem at hand. So example that if you want to learn, if you are teaching something or you want them to learn more about, let's say in science, we have electrical systems. For example, that's an area of weakness. So what you can do is to link it back. Electrical system is everywhere, right? Because we are using it in real time. So what you can do is to link whatever concepts that in the textbook to the real life. So when they are able to see that how does it link or how does it affect me in real life, that's when you are able to spark their interest so that it'll be easier for them to study. Okay. So which brings me to the second point, to use teaching methods that promote real life application. So it helps the child to better understand the material. So once they understand how this electrical system works in real life, it's easier for them to process the information. So once they are able to process the information, that's when you link it back. For example, in science, booklet B. Okay, remember every time you do booklet B, there's always this issue on keywords. For them to score points, they need the keywords. So by allowing them to explore in real life, link it back. So once they can process the information and see how it works, it'll be easier for them to spill or to use the correct terms or words in their booklet B. Okay. Right. Okay. So example of connecting to real world, just now I used electrical system. So in this case, like for example, this is a lower primary topic, okay, but it's quite relevant. As in, it's one of the examples that is where you can apply learning in the real world. So like for example, in P3, we cover topics like classification. Okay, so for science, we cover this topic of classification. So one of the things that they will need to be able to do is to classify things in the respective groups. Okay, so to connect it to the real world is to actually going out of the house to complete or to look at all these things. So for example, collecting leaves at the park. Okay, so you can classify based on that. And then when you go out, okay, you can go through the parts of the plants. Okay, so things like planting, gardening, you can actually reiterate concepts of plant systems, living things. And hold on. I'm not sure whether you're able to see my slides. Because give me a minute. Okay. Yeah. All right. So as I was saying, so example of activities that can be done will include planting or gardening. Okay, this is useful to actually reiterate the concept of plant system, living things, plant parts. Okay, flowering plant to go through concepts like reproduction and pollination. Okay, so all these can actually trigger their interest. Okay, to invoke their curiosity so that they are willing or they'll be more willing to understand and they can actually relate things better. Now, another thing is that I think some of the issues that you might say or you might raise would be, if I want to do planting and gardening, then it's going to take up too much time. So that's something that you do not have. Okay, but what you can do is, as an alternative, is to always use videos. videos that have been recorded. So I'm pretty sure on YouTube, you should be able to find quite easily videos of recording of reproduction and pollination. Okay, so in the event that sometimes when your child comes home and say that, oh, mommy, I'm having difficulty understanding this pollination. Like, what is pollination? Why is it wind or etc.? Like, why is it some pollinated by wind, some pollinated by animals? So what you can do is to look up for videos and pictures to explain further the concept. So once they see visually that, oh, this is how it looks like, then it's easier for them to process the information in that, which then helps to understand the topic better. Right? Now, okay, so last but not least, of course, to motivate, okay, is to respond positively and give praises. Okay, so positive responses to your child's question can enhance intrinsic motivation. Okay, what does this mean is, this is something I sometimes need work on, okay, whereby we always think like when your child asks a question, then you would think it's a silly question. Like, and then your first instinct or your first reaction is to like, don't ask stupid questions lah, you know, that kind of thing. Like, why you ask this type of questions? Okay. So it's something that is quite normal. All right. So, but rather than instead giving like negative feedback, what you can do is when they make an error, you have to respond positively and guide him or her back to the correct context. So like you know, in the event where they say something wrong, don't just your first action instead to just scold, okay, but rather to show affection and use positive responses. Okay. Now, of course, praises is important because it helps the child develop a feeling of competence. Okay, and you should provide encouragement if the child attempts to reach a goal but have not yet achieved it. Okay, but one thing for sure, you have to be very mindful to not overindulge or the reward will lose the motivating factor. So something that other than giving praises, okay, response positively includes rewards. Okay, so let's say if your child do very well, then of course reward your child with like handphone time, for example. I mean, nowadays, you know, 12 years old, they are always on their phone, right? So what you can do is like, okay, you've completed this correct or something like that. Give them some time to use their phone, for example. Okay, so that's a reward. But one thing that you will need to be mindful of is to not overindulge. So if you are like constantly giving phone usage for, then after a while, then it will lose the meaning. Okay, because it will lose the motivating factor. Right. So now we've come to part 2, okay, which are the study techniques. Okay, so just now I think I mentioned quite a fair bit of ways on how to learn. So these are actually methods that may help different learners. Okay, why is this important is actually sometimes, okay, not just us, okay, not just our children, okay, ourselves even, when there's always like not one way that actually motivates us to do something. Okay, so for example, like assessment books. Yeah, bring it back to the point of assessment book. Reason being because I know one of the parents was asking about whether assessment books are effective. Okay, so let's go back to assessment books. So if let's say you are constantly doing assessment books because everybody say, oh, that's the fastest way for your child to score very well. But you have been doing assessment book all your life, like throughout from P5, P4, P6, but you don't see any improvement. Then the reason is because there's a mismatch between the child's learning style and the method that you're applying. So it means that the child don't learn well through rote learning. So it means like you can make him practice like 10 assessment books, but it doesn't help because that's not the way the child learn. All right, so it's very important first and foremost before you implement a method to study. I'm not saying that assessment book is bad, okay, but it's probably the way it's being delivered. So instead of using books, what other things or softwares that you can use to help? All right, so before we cover study techniques, okay, one thing is to understand the kinds of learners that we are dealing with. Okay, like I mentioned, there's no one size fits all. different individual has different learning styles, right? We have more than one way of learning. So whenever you want to adapt a learning style or strategy, you have to understand the learning style of your child, okay? And then apply the correct strategy to help, okay, which would make it better for them. All right, so the first type of learners that we're going to go through are visual learners. This is, I think, quite common. Okay, so how do you identify visual learners? Okay, visual learners are people or children that needs to see, watch, and observe. Okay, so because they are learners that needs to see, watch, and observe, it's harder for them to process oral directions. Meaning that if you just keep talking, nothing will get in their head. All right, so for this type of learners, okay, it's important that we give visual clues and gestures. So let's say these are the kind of learner, your child is a visual learner, someone who learns very well when they see things, colorful things, or when they watch something. You know, like for example, nowadays there's TikTok, all right? So they watch this dance trend on TikTok, straight away can follow, okay? Like, you know, they just need to watch something one time and that's it. It's registered inside their head, ingrained inside their head. Then you kind of know that, okay, this child learns best when they watch something, okay? So what kind of strategies to apply when students are more visual? Okay, is of course to use graphic pictures. Okay, model skill, which is doing something. Okay, visual acronyms, mind maps, diagrams, flashcards, videos and films, puzzles, computer games. Let's face it, okay, there are some computer games that actually help, especially when it comes to, you know, it's already 2023, everything can be found online. Okay, so these are the strategies that you can adapt if your child is a visual learner. So if you want to revise topics like be it science or math, okay, make use of mind maps, it helps. Okay, and then in the mind maps include pictures, right? And then there's also like games or puzzles. Later on I will explain in detail. Okay, so example I mentioned earlier, mind mapping, it helps because it chunks up information into bite-sized info, so it's easier for them to see. It will be even more effective if you were to add in photos or pictures. That will be even better for the child to learn. Okay, puzzles also help. Okay, provided you can find one. I think all this information should be readily available online. So you can search for puzzles, brain teasers. Okay, so all this would help. And then I mentioned to my last point, which is computer games. Okay, so when I talk about computer games, it's games online that actually helps them to do revision. Okay, so this website, I have two websites to go through. Okay, the first one is bluecurt.com. Okay, for those of you who are in my class, I think some of you, the students who are familiar with this, sometimes we go through this in class. Now, the thing is, this is quite effective when you are at home or in a smaller setting, because it cannot be applied in MOE schools because it's very difficult for them to control the entire class with this. So what you can do is to actually create an account on Bluecurt, and then in Bluecurt itself, there's actually topics that you can use for revision. So in this example, I use is life cycle. So you can look for a topic in life cycle. So that means if let's say your child weighted assessment coming up is about life cycle, then you just get them to revise online. Okay, so but be very careful, because when you want to choose this type of website, because it's not based in Singapore, so some of the topics are irrelevant. So what you can do is to pick and choose the one that is relevant to them. Right? So one thing about Bluecurt is it's a quiz, but it's in a form of a game. So you can actually choose a few types of game for them to play, and then they will answer question. And then at the end of the quiz, they will also tell you how your child fare, and where are the common errors. Okay, so this is one thing you can explore. Now, another thing is flashcards. Okay, it can be found on Quizlet.com. This example for Quizlet, you can use it for language. Okay, if the child has any language test, or if you want to study idioms, or if they are taking language, Malay language or Chinese language, right? So if there's idioms or peribahasa, okay, you can actually use it to practice, right? Same thing also, just like the previous website, the Bluecurt website, some of them may not be relevant, so you got to choose and pick one that is. Okay, alternatively, what you can do is, if you have time, and then you can always create your own that is more relevant to your child. So if you have a particular topic that you want your child to learn, then that's the topic that you can create. Okay, so Quizlet is also a free account. Okay, and a good thing about Quizlet is, like I mentioned, it has multiple disciplines. So it's not just for English, not just for math. It's across various topics and subjects. Okay, and then our EduFrance LMS system also, we do have online quizzes. Okay, so something that they can practice on. We also have the weekly video recordings of lessons. So if it's something that your child needs to repeat, okay, so you needs to watch again for them to get the topic right, then the recordings are all readily available. Okay, so that's one. Now, then we'll move on to the second types of learners, which are our auditory learners. Okay, so auditory learners are learners who use sounds to process information, such as listening to stories, music, or rhyme. Okay, so if the first case earlier, like your child one time watched the video on TikTok, can straight away copy the dance, they are visual learners. If your child is the kind that one time they listen to the song on TikTok and they're able to repeat the whole song, okay, get it right, tune and all, then they are most likely auditory learners. Okay, so how do you help auditory learners? All right, is to use jingles, catchy stories, mnemonics, cheers, or songs. So so these are examples. These two can be found in our science book in EduFrance. So of course, one thing you can get them to remember is how to remember concepts. So like, for example, characteristics of living things. So they can remember Mr. Grab. So all these are the points that is related to characteristics of living things. Okay, I don't know whether some of you are aware, but there's also this thing called the water cycle song. Okay, if you just Google YouTube water cycle song, then it will come out and they actually teach you how to remember the water cycle. All right, so these are all the things that is something that you can use for auditory learners. Okay, or if your child can create rap, sometimes they just listen to all these songs and then they can create raps, or you can change your lesson to, or rather the topic to include, change the lyrics of songs. So let's say maybe your child is a Taylor Swift fan, for example. So you can adapt some tune from the Taylor Swift song, but make it into your own, like the particular topic that they're learning. Okay, so these are the examples. All right, if you want to learn the 6 main animal groups, you can say, oh, I asked my brother for rice, insects, amphibians, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so these are all the topics, or rather all the animal groups that they will need to remember. Okay, now the next type of learners, okay, that we are going to go through is kinesthetic learners. So kinesthetic learners, example, they are the type of learners that learns by touch and doing. So they need to touch something, do something, then they can focus. Okay, so they always get bored very easily if you just sit down. All right, I think there was a question somewhere talking about the child being ADHD. All right, I am not trained in behavioral management. Okay, so I do not have a specific solution for you. Okay, but what you can do is to adopt some of these techniques and find one that suits your child. So usually if you're hyperactive, chances are they are kinesthetic learners. So everything also must touch and feel and do. Okay, so strategies for kinesthetic learners would be hands-on activities and projects, drawing, journaling, building blocks, manipulatives, Legos. Okay, so all these falls under building blocks. It's something that can help. Okay, Okay, so first and foremost, hands-on activities. If you do not have time to create, what you can do is to always purchase any science kits. It's readily available. Okay, so you can find on Shopee, you can find on Science Center website. Okay, so what does this do is it actually helps. The activity will not help in like answering questions. Okay, so basically what this activity does is to just help your child retain the concepts or the keywords. Okay, so once they're able to retain the concept and keywords, that's when they can translate it to their work. Right? So if science kits also, they can actually help to motivate the child to be interested or curious in something, right? Because it links back. Okay, just like any of the activities that I have mentioned earlier, okay, from the very beginning, okay, it's not to help in exam, but rather you will need to link it back to the objective. Right? So in the sense that we are trying to teach, you are trying to encourage the child to be able to retain information so that they can apply it back in their studies or in their paper. Okay, so for example, when you are doing this type of activities, okay, for science, sometimes the topics are very abstract, something that they cannot link or cannot see. So by doing or using these activities, the science kits, what you can do is to introduce the key concepts or keyword that the child will need to use and apply during exam. So at the end of the activity, once they are done, then you reinforce what the child has learned by introducing them the questions that they are supposed to do. Okay, so this is how the strategies help. Okay, it's not so much to help you answer the question, but it's to retain the information so that they are able to answer. Okay, now, oh, sorry. So that's the 3 types of learners that we actually covered. Okay, so one being visual learners, kinesthetic learners, and auditory learners. Don't worry, the recording will be sent to you. So in the event that you will need to some ideas on what you can do, you can actually refer back. Okay. Now let's so basically I think I also received quite a fair bit of question on time management. Okay, it's not easy to time manage. I think even as adults also, we also have problems. Okay, so what you can do is first, okay, observe your child current study habits and learning style. So think about what works for them, what doesn't work for them. Are they the type that they can sit down for long hours, okay, any time of the day? Or are they the kind that are more focused in the morning, at night? Okay, so these are the things that you will need to remember, that you will need to apply. Okay, so basically like when you want to get them to study, okay, let's say your child is the kind 8 o'clock every night, confirm very sleepy. Then of course you cannot put your revision time at 8 o'clock. So you have to be able to shuffle, move around the schedule so that you can accommodate to what your child is like. Okay, so evaluate your current schedule, the child's current schedule. So sometimes as parents, we are overly enthusiastic. Okay, everything also must go. Okay, piano class must go, football class must go. Okay, everything also must go. But you must be very mindful that you have to block out their standing commitments, including their classes, their playtime, their extracurricular activities. Okay, so after you block out all of them, okay, then you must see that how much time they have to actually do their revision or studying. Okay, and if you notice that once, because sometimes we cannot see, like in your head, okay, Saturday got piano tuition, Sunday got religious class, got football in the evening. To you, it seems like, oh, that's easy. But after you jot down the schedule, you realize that, oh, actually my child do not have much time. Okay, so if let's say in the event that after you evaluate, you realize that they have very little time to study or to do revision, then you will need to reevaluate, cut back on what you can cut. Okay. Number 3, plan how much time your child needs per subject. Okay, understanding your child's strengths and weaknesses allow you to actually allocate your resources well. What do I mean by that is that if let's say their strength lies in mathematics, okay, then what you can do is to cut down on your math revision so that they can focus more on other subjects, or you can allocate them to play lah, for playtime. Okay, so if let's say I'm not saying to completely ignore revision for math, but if let's say they are generally quite strong in mathematics, then you should use the time to revise on other subjects. All right. It's always important to reassess your child's schedule, be it whether weekly or monthly. Okay. At the end of the day, I think if you have the overarching goal for the term, so let's say most of you right now, the goal is to clear PSLE. That is the overarching goal. But at the beginning of each week, or let's say in the event they have weighted assessment in March. So the goal, that is your sub goal for the year. So you will need to tweak their schedule such that you can accommodate to that goal. Okay, so if let's say if there's a test that you need to study, then of course adjust the schedule accordingly. The schedule should be dynamic, and it shouldn't be static. So it should be something that you can change. So how do you do this? Is through the weekly planner, monthly planner. So let's say there's always this readily available whiteboard, okay, with the planner. So let's say they have a weighted assessment on Friday. Then you will need to be able to rearrange their schedule accordingly. Okay, I have a question here. I think the parents say that, is there a chance that some child is a mix of learning style, visual plus kinesthetic? Yes. Okay, that's possible. It's highly likely, okay. Usually it's a mixture of both. All right. So if it's visual and kinesthetic, then you will need to apply the learning techniques accordingly. Yeah. So it's quite possible. Right. Another question that pops up is to time manage during exam. How do you actually help to manage their time during exam? Is first and foremost, practice paper. Get them to do timed practice paper as part of your revision. Okay, doing this actually allow them to sit, or basically you try to mimic the close possible situation when they sit for an exam. So if let's say the paper is 1.5 hours, when you give them a practice paper to do, make them finish it in 1.5 hours. Okay, and then one thing that you can tell them is to skim through the paper before starting. So when they are able to look through the paper, okay, from the beginning to the end, they are then able to work out the time. So teach them how to work out the time that they have. So how do you work out the time? Is to divide the time by the number of questions, or allocate more time for the higher marks question. So especially for math, chances are, they always get stuck at the beginning, then they have no time to complete the 5 marks question at the back. I know people always say that okay, you have to complete everything. So if you cannot do, then like try and work out, do not skip questions. I personally will tell my students, if you cannot finish or you cannot do that question, skip first. Okay. It really depends lah. Okay, but for me, I think it works because in the event that if the child cannot attempt, let's say question 2, they're already stuck. If they spend 10 minutes on that question, it's valuable time that is wasted for the other questions at the back. So if they cannot, or they think that it's too difficult, then they skip first, complete the rest of the paper, then they will go back to the question later on. Okay, so it's not as bad. So which brings me to point number 4. Always try and start with the easy questions first. Okay, but if let's say it's not possible, then it's okay to skip and then just get back to the questions after. Because chances are, if they are stuck in that particular question, that it will also affect their morale. Then they will feel like they get flustered just because they are stuck at that particular question. So it's they can actually, what I always do is to encourage them, if they really are stuck and they are not able to do it, then move on first. Because maybe they will get some ideas or some information might come back to them throughout at the back of the paper. Because especially when it comes to topic like science, because the questions are topical. So sometimes the answer to that beginning or the idea that you can obtain is actually found at the back of the paper. So by skipping, they can actually, it might help. Okay, so these are some of the tips to actually manage time during exams. So I think I have spoken quite a fair bit. Come to the end of my talk already. But before I end, okay, there's actually some promotion matters. Okay, that one thing is there's an exclusive offer. I think it's most of you are current parents. If you are not, then these are the offers that we have. Another thing is that my colleagues in the Nusa department, we actually came out with a new publication. Okay, so this is for the Malay language lah, all right? So it's the Nusa department. We have this Perkasa Bahasa book. Okay, I'm not sure whether you're aware, but Perkasa Bahasa book is the actually facilitate process of teaching and learning grammar. So every unit actually have grammar notes that accompanied by exercises. Okay, so if you like to purchase, you actually can purchase through our EduFront online shop. Okay, so the QR code is here and the link is here. Okay, so I've actually come to the end of my session. So if you have any question, I'll stay behind for a bit. Then I can try and attempt to answer some of the questions. Otherwise, then I thank you very much for joining me today. We will send out the link to the recording sometime in the next week. So yeah, if you have anything that you will need, you can also drop me an email. I think some of the invites, the email invite was actually sent out by me. Okay, so if there's any question, I'll be here. Otherwise, then thank you everybody for your time. Thank you. I will keep it at this page, okay, in the event you need the QR code. Thank you.